The morning sun barely touched the peak of Mount Karvesh when the roar shook the entire mountain. Birds fled from trees, small animals ran into their holes, even the wind seemed to stop moving for a moment. "Who has touched my armor?" The voice belonged to Velraxis, the Dragon Queen. Her roar could be heard for miles in every direction. Deep inside the mountain in the main chamber where the queen slept, Velraxis stood before her ancient battle armor. Her golden eyes were wide with shock and anger. The armor hung on its stand, gleaming in the dim light that came through cracks in the stone walls. This was impossible. The armor had been broken for 300 years. Velraxis remembered every crack, every shattered scale, every bent piece of metal. She had left it that way on purpose. The damage was a reminder of the Great War. A reminder of what she had lost. But now the armor was perfect. Every scale fit together smoothly. Every piece of metal shone like new. The work was so good that Velraxis had to look very closely to see where the repairs had been made. And that made her even more angry. "Guards!" she bellowed. 6 dragon guards rushed into the chamber. Their scales were different colors, red, blue, green, and black. They all looked terrified. When the queen was angry, anyone near her was in danger. "Who entered my chamber?" Velraxis demanded. Her tail smashed against the stone floor, cracking it. "Who dared to touch my belongings?" The guards looked at each other. The oldest one, a red dragon named Drachmor, stepped forward. He kept his head low to show respect. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "no one has entered your chamber. We guard this door every hour of every day. No dragon has passed us." "Then how do you explain this?" Velraxis pointed one massive claw at the armor. "Look at it. It has been repaired. Someone did this." Drachmor looked at the armor. His eyes went wide. He had guarded this chamber for 50 years. He knew that armor had been broken. He turned to the other guards. "Did any of you see anything? Hear anything?" he asked. They all shook their heads. One young blue dragon spoke up nervously. "Your Majesty, perhaps it was magic. A spell from an enemy." Velraxis snorted, and smoke came from her nostrils. "Magic? This is not magic. This is metalwork. This is crafting. Someone with hands and tools did this." She moved closer to the armor, studying it. "And whoever did it, they are very skilled." That last part bothered her most. The repairs were better than the original work. In some places, the armor was now stronger than it had been when it was first made. This was not the work of an amateur. This was a master craftsman. "Search the mountain," Velraxis commanded. "Search every tunnel, every cave, every chamber. Find whoever did this. Bring them to me, alive." The guards bowed and rushed out. Within minutes, dozens of dragons were searching Mount Karvesh. They looked in storage rooms and old forges. They checked the treasure chambers and the sleeping quarters. They even looked in the deepest caves where nobody usually went. Velraxis stayed in her chamber, staring at the armor. She reached out one claw and touched it gently. The metal was cool and smooth. The work was beautiful. She hated that she liked it. The armor had been a gift from her mate, King Thoraxis, 600 years ago. He had died in the Great War, fighting against the Void Swarm. The swarm had come from deep space, eating everything in its path. Dragons, humans, and many other species had fought together to stop them. They had won, but the cost was terrible. Velraxis had worn the armor in the final battle. That was where it had been damaged. She had kept it broken as a memorial, a reminder of her mate and the terrible price of war. Now someone had fixed it. She felt like someone had erased an important memory. Far below, in the lowest levels of the mountain, a human named Tai Min was trying not to panic. He crouched in an old storage room that hadn't been used in years. He could hear the dragons above, searching and calling to each other. Tai Min was small compared to the dragons. He was young, maybe 25 years old. His black hair was tied back, and his hands were covered with small scars from years of metalwork. He wore simple clothes that were dirty from working in the forges. He had not meant to cause trouble. He had only wanted to help. Taemin had been living in the mountain for 6 months now. His story was sad. He had been part of a human colony on a ship traveling through space. The Void Swarm had attacked them. The ship had crashed on this planet. Taemin was the only survivor. He had found the Dragon Mountain and hidden in its lower levels. There were old forges down there that nobody used anymore. Taemin was a blacksmith, and he needed to work. Working helped him forget his pain, helped him forget that everyone he loved was dead. One night he had been exploring and found the Queen's chamber. He saw the armor and immediately recognized the quality of the work. He also saw the damage. As a craftsman, seeing such beautiful work broken made his heart hurt. He had spent 3 weeks carefully repairing it. He worked only at night when the Queen was away hunting. He used techniques his grandfather had taught him, combined with Dragon Forge methods he had learned by watching. The work had been the best thing he had ever made. He had been so proud. Now he realized he had made a terrible mistake. Taemin heard footsteps getting closer. Heavy footsteps, dragon footsteps. He looked around the small storage room. There was nowhere to hide. The room had one door and no windows. He was trapped. The door burst open. 3 dragons stood there, their eyes glowing in the darkness. They saw Taemin immediately. "A human!" one of them gasped. "There's a human in the mountain!" They grabbed him with their claws, careful not to hurt him but firm enough that he could not escape. Taemin did not fight. What was the point? He could not beat a dragon in a fight. As they carried him up through the mountain tunnels, Taemin thought about the armor. He hoped the Dragon Queen would at least appreciate the quality of his work before she killed him. That seemed like a small thing to hope for, but it was all he had. The dragons brought him to the main chamber. The Queen was waiting. She was huge, much bigger than the other dragons. Her scales were deep purple, almost black, and they gleamed like jewels. Her eyes were the color of gold, and they were fixed on Taemin with an intensity that made him want to look away. The dragons dropped Taemin on the floor. He fell to his knees, not because they forced him, but because his legs were shaking too much to stand. "A human," Velraxis said. Her voice was low now, not angry, but dangerous. "There has not been a human in this mountain for 300 years. How did you get here, and why are you here?" Taemin swallowed hard. He decided to tell the truth. Lying to a dragon seemed like a bad idea. "My ship crashed," he said. His voice was quiet but steady. 6 months ago, the Void Swarm attacked us. Everyone died except me. I found your mountain and hid here." Velraxis tilted her head. "The Void Swarm? They are gone. We destroyed them in the Great War." "They came back," Taemin said. "Not all of them. Maybe just a few. But enough to destroy my ship and kill my people." The dragons in the room shifted uncomfortably. The idea that the Void Swarm might return was frightening to all of them. "And you repaired my armor," Velraxis said. It was not a question. "Yes," Taemin said. "I'm sorry, I should not have touched it, but I'm a blacksmith. It's what I do. I saw it was damaged, and I couldn't help myself. The work was too beautiful to leave broken." Velraxis stared at him for a long moment. Taemin waited for the fire to come, for his life to end. Instead, the Queen asked a question he did not expect. "How did you make it stronger?" Taemin looked up at the Dragon Queen. He had expected death, not questions. He did not know if this was better or worse. "I used a technique from my grandfather," Taemin said carefully. "He was a master blacksmith on Earth. He taught me how to layer different metals together. It makes the metal stronger, but also more flexible. Dragon armor is already very good, but it can be better if you add thin layers of softer metal between the hard scales. When something hits it, the force spreads out instead of cracking one spot." Velraxis moved closer. Taemin could feel the heat coming from her body. All dragons were warm, but queens were like walking furnaces. "Show me," she said. "Show you what, Your Majesty? Show me the technique. Prove you did this work." Velraxis gestured with one wing. Two guards brought the armor forward and set it on the floor in front of Tai Min. The human stood up slowly. His legs still felt weak, but he forced himself to stay steady. He approached the armor and knelt beside it. "Here," he said, pointing to one of the chest scales. "Do you see this line? It's very thin. That's where I added a layer of copper between two layers of steel. The copper is soft, so it absorbs impact. And here, on the shoulder piece, I used a lattice pattern instead of solid metal. It's actually stronger this way because force can travel through the gaps." He pointed to several other places, explaining each repair. As he talked, his fear began to fade. This was what he knew. This was what he loved. Metalwork made sense in a way nothing else did. Drakmor, the Red Dragon General, leaned in to look closer. "Impossible," he muttered. "Our best smiths have been working for centuries. How could a human improve on their work?" "Different species think differently," Tai Min said. Then he realized he might sound rude. "I'm sorry. I don't mean your smiths are bad. They're very good. But humans, we're small and weak. We have to think of clever ways to make up for it. We've spent thousands of years learning how to make things stronger without making them heavier." Velraxis was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up to her full height. She was so tall that Taman had to crane his neck to see her face. "You will repair the armor of all my generals," she announced. "If you do good work, you will live. If you do poor work, you will die. Do you understand?" Taman bowed. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Take him to the old forge," Velraxis told her guards. "Give him whatever materials he needs. But watch him at all times. If he tries to escape, kill him." The guards surrounded Taemin and led him out of the chamber. As they walked through the mountain tunnels, Taemin felt a strange mix of emotions. He was still a prisoner. He was still in danger, but at least he could do what he loved. At least he had a purpose again. The old forge was in the eastern part of the mountain. It was huge, with a ceiling so high that it disappeared into shadows. There were 3 large furnaces made of black stone. They had not been used in a very long time. Dust covered everything. Spider webs hung in the corners. "This place is ancient," Drakmor said. He had come with the guards to oversee Taemin's work. "It was built during the age of the old kings, back when dragons still made their own armor instead of buying it from the fire giants." Taemin walked around the forge, examining everything. The furnaces were well built, the anvils were solid, the tools were old, but still good. With some cleaning and organization, this could be a wonderful workspace. "I'll need help cleaning," Taemin said. "And I'll need materials, steel, copper, silver if you have it, also coal or wood for the furnaces, and I'll need the generals to bring their armor here so I can measure it properly." Drakmor snorted. "You give orders like you're not a prisoner." "I'm a craftsman," Taemin said. "If you want good work, I need the right tools and materials. That's not an order, that's just truth." Drakmor stared at him for a moment. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. It was a deep rumbling sound. "You're brave for such a small creature. Very well. You'll have what you need." Over the next few days, Taemin worked hard. Younger dragons helped him clean the forge. They were curious about him. Most had never seen a human before. One young dragon, a green female named Hyo Jin, was especially curious. She asked him many questions while they worked. "Is it true humans only live for about 80 years?" she asked. "Sometimes longer, sometimes shorter," Taemin said. He was scrubbing rust off an old hammer. "How long do dragons live?" 1,000 years usually, sometimes more. The queen is almost 900 years old." Taemin paused. 900 years. He could barely imagine it. That's a very long time. It can be lonely, Hyojin said quietly, when everyone you love dies before you. Taemin understood that feeling, not the length of years, but the loneliness. Yes, he said, it can be very lonely. By the end of the week, the forge was ready. The furnaces were clean and working. The tools were organized. Materials were stacked neatly along the walls. Taemin stood in the center of the workspace and felt something he had not felt in months. He felt ready. The first general to arrive was Drachenkönigin. The red dragon carried his armor in his claws. It was battle-worn, with scratches and dents all over it. "I fought in the Great War," Drachenkönigin said as he set the armor down. "This armor saved my life many times. Can you fix it?" Taemin walked around the armor slowly, studying it from every angle. He touched the metal, feeling for weak spots. He examined each piece carefully. "I can fix it," he said finally, "but it will take time. Good work cannot be rushed." "How much time?" 3 days for a basic repair. 5 days to make it better than new." Drachenkönigin considered this. "You have 5 days. Impress me, human." Taemin worked day and night. He barely slept. He barely ate. When dragons brought him food, he ate while working. When they told him to rest, he kept working. This was not just about survival anymore. This was about pride, about showing what humans could do. He heated metal in the furnace until it glowed orange. He hammered it on the anvil, sparks flying with each strike. He bent and shaped and smoothed. He added layers where the armor was weak. He redesigned parts that were poorly made. He polished every surface until it gleamed. Hyojin often sat and watched him work. She was young, only about 50 years old, which was very young for a dragon. She reminded Taemin of his younger sister. That thought made him sad, so he focused on his work instead. "Why do you work so hard?" Hyojin asked on the 3rd day. "You're a prisoner. You could do the minimum and still live." Taemin looked up from the shoulder piece he was working on. Sweat ran down his face. His arms ached, but his eyes were bright. "Because this is who I am," he said. "I'm a blacksmith. My grandfather was a blacksmith. His grandfather was a blacksmith. For 200 years, my family has made things with metal. Good things, beautiful things, things that last. If I do poor work, I shame my family. I shame myself. I would rather die than make something badly." Hyojin tilted her head. "That's very human," she said. "What do you mean?" "Dragons are proud of our strength, our magic, our long lives. But humans, you're proud of what you make, what you create. Even though you're small and weak and don't live very long, you try to make things that will last forever." "That's interesting." Taemin smiled a little. "We have to leave something behind. Otherwise, what's the point?" On the 5th day, Taemin finished. He was exhausted. His hands were covered with new burns and cuts. But the armor was done, and it was beautiful. Drachenkönigin arrived to inspect the work. Other generals came with him. They walked around the armor, looking at it from every angle. They touched it. They lifted pieces to feel the weight. They whispered to each other. Finally, Drachenkönigin spoke. "Put it on me." Taemin and Hyojin helped the big red dragon put on the armor. Each piece fit perfectly. When it was all in place, Drachenkönigin moved around, testing it. He stretched his wings. He bent down. He twisted side to side. "It's lighter," he said with surprise. "But it feels stronger." "It is stronger," Taemin said. "I removed some unnecessary metal and reinforced the weak points. Less weight, more protection." Drachenkönigin looked at himself in a polished metal mirror. The armor gleamed like new, better than new. He turned to the other generals. "What do you think?" he asked them. "I want mine repaired next," said a blue general immediately. "No, mine," said a black general. "Mine needs more work than any of yours," argued a green general. They began to argue about whose armor should be repaired next. Drakmor silenced them with a roar. "The Queen will decide the order," he said. Then he looked at Taemin. "You have passed the test, human. Your work is excellent." Taemin felt relief wash over him. He had survived, at least for now. "Thank you, General," he said. "What is your name?" Drakmor asked. "Taemin." "Taemin," Drakmor repeated, testing the sound. "A strange name. But you're a strange creature. Come. The Queen will want to see this." They walked back to the main chamber. Velraxis was waiting there, along with many other dragons. News of the armor had spread quickly through the mountain. Everyone wanted to see if the human had really done good work. Drakmor stood before the Queen and bowed. "Your Majesty, the human has exceeded expectations. My armor is better than it was when it was first made." Velraxis studied the armor carefully. She walked around Drakmor, examining every detail. Finally, she looked at Taemin. "You may live," she said. "You will repair the armor of all my generals. After that, we will decide what to do with you." It was not freedom, but it was life. For now, that was enough. 3 months passed. Taemin repaired armor for 12 generals. Each piece was better than the last. He learned more about dragon metalwork with each project. He also learned more about the dragons themselves. They were not the monsters he had feared at first. They had personalities. They had humor. They argued and laughed and told stories. They were people, just in different bodies. Drakmor visited the forge often. At first, he came to supervise. Then he came just to talk. The old general seemed to enjoy having someone to tell his war stories to. "I was barely 300 years old when the Void Swarm came," Drakmor said one afternoon. He watched Taemin work on a bronze shoulder guard. "Young and foolish, I thought I was invincible." "What changed your mind?" Taemin asked. He was heating the metal carefully, watching the color change. "The first battle," Drakmor said quietly. "We lost 10,000 dragons in one day. I saw friends die. I saw dragons older and stronger than me fall from the sky. That's when I learned fear." Taemin removed the metal from the furnace and began hammering it. The rhythm of hammer on metal filled the forge. After a minute, he spoke. "I learned fear when my ship was attacked. We thought we were safe. The Void Swarm was supposed to be gone, destroyed centuries ago. Then they came out of nowhere. Black ships that seemed to eat light itself. They cut through our hull like paper. People I had known my whole life were just gone. In seconds." Drakmor was quiet. Then he said, "You and I are not so different, human. We've both lost everything." "Not everything," Taemin said. "I still have my skills, my knowledge." "That's something." Hyojin came to the forge every day. She brought food and water. She helped with small tasks. Mostly she talked. She told Taemin about life in the mountain, about dragon customs and history, about the Queen. "The Queen used to be different," Hyojin said one day. "She was organizing tools while Taemin worked. My grandmother knew her before the war. She said Velraxis used to laugh all the time. She loved music and dancing. She would fly through the clouds just for fun." "What changed?" Taemin asked, though he thought he knew the answer. "King Thoraxis died, the Queen's mate. They were together for 300 years. When he died fighting the Void Swarm, something in her died too. She became hard, cold. She stopped laughing. She stopped flying for fun. All she cared about was duty and protecting the realm." Taemin thought about the armor he had repaired, the Queen's armor. Now he understood why she had been so angry. It was not just armor. It was a memory, a piece of someone she loved. "I should not have repaired it," he said quietly. "Maybe," Hyojin said. "Or maybe it was time. Maybe holding on to broken things keeps us broken too." That night, Taemin could not sleep. He lay on the small bed the dragons had given him, staring at the ceiling. An idea had come to him, a way to apologize to the queen, a way to show he understood. He got up and went to the forge. He lit the furnaces and began to work. For 2 weeks, Tai Min worked in secret. He only worked at night when most dragons were sleeping. Hyojin discovered him on the 3rd night. "What are you making?" she asked. Tai Min looked up from his work. His face was tired, but his eyes were bright with purpose. "A memorial for King Thoraxis. The queen needs to remember him as he was, not just through broken armor. She needs something beautiful that honors him." "The queen did not ask for this," Hyojin warned. "She might be angry." "I know, but I have to try. It's the right thing to do." Hyojin watched him work for a moment. Then she smiled. "You're very brave for such a small creature. What can I do to help?" Together they worked. Hyojin used her dragon magic to heat the metal more precisely. She told Taemin stories about King Thoraxis so he could understand what to make. She described the king's favorite things, his personality, his dreams. Taemin made a sculpture. It was a dragon in flight, wings spread wide, head raised to the sky. Every scale was detailed. Every claw was perfect. The metal seemed to glow with inner light. On the base, Taemin carved words in both dragon language and human language. "Those who fly highest live forever in our hearts." When it was finished, Taemin and Hyojin stood back to look at it. The sculpture was as tall as Taemin. It had taken all his skill to make it. It was the best work he had ever done. "It's beautiful," Hyojin whispered. "Will she like it?" Taemin asked nervously. "I don't know, but it's a worthy gift." The next morning, Taemin asked to see the queen. The guards were surprised. Usually, prisoners did not ask to see the queen. They tried to avoid her. Velraxis received him in her throne room. It was a vast chamber carved from black stone. Light came through openings in the ceiling, creating patterns on the floor. The queen sat on a throne made from a single piece of crystal. She looked down at Taemin with her golden eyes. "You asked to see me," she said. Her voice echoed in the chamber. "Why?" Taemin had brought the sculpture, covered in cloth. He set it down and bowed. "Your Majesty, I want to apologize. When I repaired your armor, I did not understand what it meant to you. I did not know about King Thoraxis. I was wrong to touch something so personal without permission." "You have apologized before," Velraxis said. "Why apologize again?" "Because now I understand, and I wanted to give you this, to show I understand." He pulled the cloth away. The sculpture gleamed in the light from above. The metal dragon seemed almost alive, frozen in a moment of perfect flight. The throne room became very quiet. Velraxis stared at the sculpture. She stood up slowly and walked down from her throne. She moved closer, her eyes fixed on the metal dragon. She reached out one claw and touched it gently. Her claw traced the wings, the scales, the proud head. Her expression did not change, but Taemin saw something in her eyes, something that looked like pain and joy mixed together. "This is Thoraxis," she said softly. "Not as he was in the war, not as he was dying, but as he was in life, free, happy, flying." "Yes, Your Majesty," Taemin said. "Hyojin told me about him. She said he loved to fly through storms, that he would challenge the lightning just for fun." A sound came from Velraxis. It took Taemin a moment to realize she was crying. Dragons cried differently than humans. No tears fell, but a deep, mournful sound came from her throat. It was the sound of grief held back for 300 years, finally being released. The guards in the room shifted uncomfortably. They had never seen their queen cry. They did not know what to do. Velraxis stood there for a long time, her claw resting on the sculpture. When she finally spoke, her voice was rough with emotion. "Thank you," she said. "This is a great gift, greater than you know. I'm glad you like it, Your Majesty. Velraxis looked at him, really looked at him, like she was seeing him for the first time. Not as a prisoner, not as a tool to repair armor, but as a person who had tried to help her heal. You have skills, Taemin the blacksmith. But more than that, you have heart. You saw a stranger's pain and tried to ease it, even though that stranger had threatened to kill you. That takes courage. I only did what felt right. That is exactly what makes it courageous. Velraxis turned to her guards. From this day, Taemin is not a prisoner. He is a guest of this mountain. He may go where he wishes, do as he wishes. But Taemin, I hope you will choose to stay. We could use a blacksmith with your skills. Taemin felt his chest tighten. Freedom. He had not expected that. I'll stay, he said. I have nowhere else to go, and I like it here. Good. Velraxis looked back at the sculpture. Place this in the Hall of Kings, where everyone can see it, where everyone can remember Thoraxis as he was. Guards carefully lifted the sculpture and carried it away. When they were gone, Velraxis sat down on the floor. She was still huge compared to Taemin, but somehow she seemed smaller now, less frightening. Tell me about your people, she said, the ones who died on your ship. So Taemin told her. He talked about his grandfather who taught him blacksmithing, about his sister who wanted to be a pilot, about his friends and the life they had planned to build on a new world. He talked until his voice was hoarse. Velraxis listened to everything. When he finished, she nodded slowly. Loss is universal, she said. It crosses all species, all worlds. We try to protect ourselves from it by building walls around our hearts. But that only makes us smaller. You, human, have shown me something I had forgotten. That the best way to honor those we have lost is to keep living, to keep creating, to keep finding beauty in the world. My grandfather used to say that, Taemin said. He said every piece we make is a way of saying we were here, that we mattered. Your grandfather was wise. Velraxis stood up. Come, you must be hungry. Join me for dinner. We have much to discuss. As Taemin followed the Dragon Queen to her dining hall, he felt something he had not felt since the attack on his ship. He felt hope. Maybe he could not bring back the people he had lost. Maybe he could not go back to the life he had planned. But he could build something new here, something good, something that would last. And that was enough. 4 months after gaining his freedom, Taemin had become part of life in the mountain. Dragons no longer stared at him with suspicion. They greeted him in the halls. They asked him to repair their tools and weapons. Some even asked him to make decorative items, jewelry, sculptures, ornaments for their chambers. The forge had become his home. He had improved it over time, adding better ventilation and organizing the workspace. He had even built a small living space in a corner with a proper bed and a desk where he could draw designs. Hyojin was his constant companion. She helped him with larger projects and taught him more about dragon magic. In return, he taught her metalworking. Her claws were too big for fine detail work, but she learned how to heat metal properly and how to judge the quality of different materials. You're a good teacher, she said one day. They were working on a set of ceremonial chains for an important dragon marriage ceremony. You're a good student, Taemin replied. He was carefully etching a pattern into one of the links. You remind me of my sister. She was always curious about everything. What was her name? Ji-woo. She was 18 when we left Earth. So excited about the new world we were going to build. She wanted to design cities. She had all these drawings of beautiful buildings with gardens on every level. She sounds wonderful. She was. Taemin paused in his work. He still felt pain when he thought about his family, but it was different now, less sharp, more like an old scar instead of a fresh wound. I think she would have liked you. Hyojin smiled, showing her many teeth. Dragon smiles looked frightening at first, but Taemin had learned they were genuine expressions of joy. That afternoon, Velraxis sent for him. Taemin found her in the war room, a chamber filled with maps and strategic documents. Drakmor and several other generals were there too. They all looked serious. Taemin, Velraxis said, we have a problem. Our scouts have seen something in the northern territories, something that should not be there. She gestured to a map on the table. The northern territories were marked in red. Taemin saw notations in dragon script that he could not read. What is it? He asked. Dark ships, Drakmor said grimly. Small ones, scouts probably. But the design matches descriptions from the Great War. Taemin felt his blood turn cold. The Void Swarm. We thought they were all destroyed, Velraxis said. Clearly we were wrong. A remnant must have survived somewhere in deep space. They have been rebuilding, growing, and now they're coming back. How many ships? Taemin asked. We've seen 3 so far, but where there are 3, there are likely more hiding. The Void Swarm never attacks with scouts alone. They're studying us, learning our defenses, planning a larger attack. Taemin sat down heavily in a chair. His legs suddenly felt weak. The nightmares he had finally started to escape came rushing back. He could see the black ships cutting through his colony vessel, could hear the screams, could smell the burning. Hyo-jin, who had followed him to the meeting, put a claw gently on his shoulder. Breathe, she said softly. You're safe here. Taemin forced himself to take deep breaths. After a moment, the panic subsided. He looked up at Velraxis. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because you fought them, Velraxis said. Your people fought them, and lost, yes, but you survived. You might know something that could help us. I'm not a soldier. I'm a blacksmith. I was hiding in the engine room when they attacked. I didn't see the battle. But you saw their ships, their weapons. Every detail might be important. So Taemin told them everything he remembered. The way the Void Swarm ships seemed to absorb light, how their weapons burned through metal like it was paper, how they had fired some kind of projectile that had spread through the ship like a virus, corrupting the systems from inside. The generals listened carefully. They asked questions. They made notes. When Taemin finished, they were quiet for a moment. This is worse than we thought, Drakmor said. In the Great War, their weapons were powerful but straightforward. This virus weapon is new. They've evolved, Velraxis said. They've learned from their defeat. This will not be an easy fight. We need better weapons, said a blue general named Kion. Better armor. Better everything. All eyes turned to Taemin. He understood what they were asking before they said it. You want me to make weapons, he said. We need every advantage we can get, Velraxis said. Your techniques make our armor stronger. Perhaps you can do the same with weapons. Taemin thought about this. He had never made weapons designed to kill. His grandfather had taught him that blacksmiths should create things that help people, not hurt them. But his grandfather had never faced the Void Swarm, had never seen entire worlds consumed by their hunger. I'll do it, he said, but I'll need help. And I'll need to see the weapons you already have. I need to understand what works and what doesn't against the swarm. You'll have whatever you need, Velraxis promised. Over the next few weeks, the mountain transformed from a peaceful home into a war fortress. Dragons that had been living quiet lives suddenly began training for battle. The old training grounds were reopened. The younger dragons, who had never seen combat, practiced flying in formation. Taemin worked harder than he ever had. He studied dragon weapons, swords, spears, battle claws. He experimented with different metals and alloys. He designed new weapons that combined dragon strength with human cleverness. His first success was a type of spear with a hollow core. When thrown with dragon strength, it whistled through the air and hit with tremendous force. But the real innovation was inside. The hollow core was filled with a reactive compound that exploded on impact. One spear could take down a small void swarm ship. "Brilliant," Drakmor said when he saw it work in testing. "How many can you make?" "Not enough," Taemin said honestly. "Each one takes hours to craft properly. I'd need a team of smiths working around the clock to produce enough for the whole army." "Then you'll have a team. I'll assign 20 of our best smiths to work under your direction." So Taemin became not just a craftsman, but a teacher. He showed the dragon smiths his techniques. At first, they were reluctant to learn from a human, but when they saw how effective his designs were, their pride faded. They wanted to learn. They needed to learn. Hyojin worked beside him every day. She had a natural talent for metalwork and picked up techniques quickly. She also had good ideas of her own. "What if we made a net weapon?" she suggested one day. "Something dragons could drop from above. The swarm ships are fast, but a net might tangle them long enough for us to attack." "A net made of what?" Taemin asked. "It would need to be incredibly strong." "What about linking chains? Small chains connected to larger chains, flexible but strong." They worked on the design together. After many attempts, they created a net weapon that could be folded small but expanded wide when thrown. Each link was reinforced with the same layering technique Taemin had used on the armor. The net was strong enough to stop a swarm ship, but light enough for a dragon to carry. Velraxis visited the forge often. She wanted to see their progress. She also wanted to plan. "We cannot wait for them to attack," she said during one visit. "We must strike first, find their base. Destroy them before they grow stronger." "That's risky," Drakmor warned. "We don't know how many there are. We could be flying into a trap." "Everything is risky," Velraxis said, "but doing nothing is the biggest risk of all. The void swarm grows stronger every day. We must attack, while we still have the advantage of surprise." Taemin listened to them plan. He felt strange being part of these discussions. A few months ago, he had been a prisoner. Now he was helping plan a war. Life was very strange sometimes. Late one night, when most dragons were sleeping, Taemin sat alone in the forge. He held one of the explosive spears in his hands. It was beautiful in a deadly way. The metal gleamed in the firelight. The balance was perfect. It was good work, but it was made to kill. Hyojin found him there. She sat down beside him, folding her wings carefully. "You're thinking about your grandfather," she said. "How did you know?" "You have that look, like you're arguing with someone who isn't here." Taemin smiled sadly. "He would not approve of this. He always said our job was to make things that last, things that help, not things that destroy. But these weapons will help," Hyojin said gently. "They'll protect people. They'll stop the void swarm from killing more families like yours. Is that not a good purpose?" "I suppose. But it still feels wrong somehow." "War always feels wrong. That's how you know you're a good person. People who enjoy making weapons of war are dangerous. But people like you, who make them because they must, because others need protection, you're different. You're doing what's necessary, not what's easy." Taemin thought about that. She was right, he realized. He was not making these weapons because he wanted to. He was making them because the alternative was worse. Doing nothing while the void swarm grew stronger, that would be the real crime. "Thank you," he said to Hyojin. "For what?" "For understanding, for being my friend." "Friends help each other understand hard things," Hyojin said. "That's what friends are for." The next morning, scouts brought urgent news. The void swarm had moved closer. They had established a base on a dead moon 3 days' flight from the mountain. And there were more ships than anyone had feared. At least 50, maybe more. The War Council met immediately. The decision was made quickly. They would attack in 1 week. That would give Taemin and his team time to finish as many weapons as possible. It would also give the army time to say goodbye to their families, because not everyone would come back from this battle. Taemin worked day and night for that final week. He barely slept. He barely ate. When his hands were too tired to work, Hyojin would take over while he rested for a few hours. Then he would wake and continue. By the end of the week, they had made 300 explosive spears, 50 net weapons, new armor for the generals, special claws designed to pierce swarm ship hulls. It was not enough, but it was what they had. On the last night before the battle, Velraxis called Taemin to her private chamber. It was the first time he had been there. The room was surprisingly simple. No treasure, no luxury. Just books and maps and a simple bed. "I wanted to thank you," Velraxis said. "You have given us a chance. Without your weapons, we would be fighting with the same tools we used 300 years ago. Now we have something new, something they won't expect." "I hope it's enough," Taemin said. "So do I." Velraxis was quiet for a moment. "If we lose tomorrow, if the swarm destroys us, I want you to take Hyojin and flee. Go south. Find the human colonies there. Warn them what's coming." "I won't run," Taemin said. "You're not a soldier. You're a craftsman. The knowledge in your head is valuable. It must survive." "With respect, Your Majesty, I'm staying. You gave me a home when I had nothing. You gave me purpose. I'm not leaving." Velraxis looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was the first time Taemin had seen her truly smile. "You have become very dragon-like," she said. "Stubborn, loyal, brave to the point of stupidity. I'll take that as a compliment." It was meant as one. She reached into a chest and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. "I made something for you. With Hyojin's help." She handed him the bundle. Taemin unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a set of armor, human-sized, made with the same techniques he had used on the dragon armor. It was light but strong, beautiful but practical. "You made this for me? You're part of this fight now. You deserve protection." Velraxis helped him put it on. It fit perfectly. "Now you look like a proper warrior." Taemin looked at himself in a mirror. The armor gleamed in the light. He looked different, stronger, ready. Tomorrow they would face the Void Swarm. Tomorrow many would die. But tonight, standing in that room, wearing armor made by a dragon queen who had become his friend, Taemin felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt like he belonged. The army gathered at dawn. 500 dragons filled the sky above Mount Karvesh. They wore their new armor and carried the weapons Taemin had made. The morning sun reflected off metal scales, creating a river of light that flowed across the clouds. Taemin stood on a high platform, watching them prepare. He felt small compared to the mighty dragons, but he no longer felt weak. The armor Velraxis had given him fit perfectly. At his side was a sword he had forged for himself, not as large as dragon weapons, but deadly and well-balanced. Hyojin landed beside him. She wore armor too, though she was young and had never fought before. Her green scales gleamed under the metal plates. "Are you frightened?" she asked. "Terrified," Taemin admitted. "You?" "Same. But I keep thinking about what you said once, about leaving something behind, about mattering. If we die today, at least we'll die fighting for something important." "I'd rather not die at all," Taemin said with a small smile. "Me too. So let's make sure we don't." Velraxis flew to the front of the formation. Her armor was magnificent, the original piece Taemin had first repaired, now enhanced further with new techniques. She looked like a queen from ancient legends. Powerful, unstoppable. "Dragons of Mount Karvesh!" her voice boomed across the sky. 300 years ago we fought the Void Swarm and won, but the cost was terrible. We lost friends. family, mates. We thought that war was over. We thought we had earned peace. She paused, letting her words sink in. We were wrong. The enemy has returned. They hide in the shadows, growing stronger, preparing to attack. They think we are weak. They think we have forgotten how to fight. Today, we prove them wrong. The dragons roared their approval. The sound was like thunder. Today, we have something they do not expect. We have new weapons, new tactics, and we have something else. Velraxis looked at Taimin. We have remembered that strength comes not just from size or power, but from creativity, from working together, from learning from those different from us. Today, we fight not just as dragons, but as a united force. And we will win! Another roar, louder than before. The dragons beat their wings, ready to fly into battle. Velraxis descended to where Taimin stood. You'll ride with me, she said. I want you to see how your weapons perform, and if something goes wrong with them, you'll be there to adapt. Taimin climbed onto her back. He had ridden dragons before during tests, but never into battle. He secured himself with straps designed to keep him safe during flight. Hyo Jin would fly with the younger dragons in the third wave. As she took off, she looked back at Taimin and nodded. He nodded back. No words were needed. The army took flight. The sound of 500 dragons beating their wings was like a massive drum. They flew in formation, heading north toward the dead moon where the Void Swarm had made their base. The flight took 3 hours. Taimin used the time to think. He thought about his grandfather, who had taught him everything. About his sister, who had wanted to build cities. About all the people on his colony ship who had died. This battle was for them too, for everyone the Void Swarm had ever killed. As they approached the dead moon, Taimin saw the swarm ships. They were exactly as he remembered from his nightmares. Black vessels that seemed to absorb light. They moved in strange, jerking patterns, like insects. There were more than 50. Taimin counted at least 70, maybe more. This is it, Velraxis said. Are you ready? No, Taimin said honestly, but let's do it anyway. Velraxis roared a battle cry. The dragon army spread out into attack formation. The first wave carried the explosive spears. They flew high, then dove at tremendous speed toward the swarm ships. The swarm responded immediately. Their ships turned, weapons charging. Beams of dark energy shot up toward the dragons. But the dragons were ready. They dodged and weaved. They were faster than the swarm remembered, and when they threw their spears, the weapons flew true. Explosions lit up the darkness. 3 swarm ships exploded in the first wave, then 5 more. The explosive spears worked exactly as designed. The swarm adapted quickly. Their ships spread out, making themselves harder targets. They began firing in patterns, creating webs of energy that were difficult to avoid. The second wave attacked. These dragons carried the net weapons. They flew in pairs, dropping nets from above. When the nets hit swarm ships, they tangled around them, stopping their movement. Then other dragons attacked the trapped ships with claws and teeth, tearing them apart. Taimin watched it all from Velraxis's back. He saw dragons fall. He saw swarm ships burn. He saw the chaos and horror of war. Then he saw something that made his blood freeze. A massive swarm ship emerged from behind the moon. It was 10 times larger than the others. A command ship. It had weapons that made the smaller ships look like toys. "Velraxis," he shouted. "That big ship. We need to take it down or we'll lose." "I see it." Velraxis banked hard, changing direction. "All forces, focus on the command ship." But the command ship was well protected. Smaller swarm ships swarmed around it, forming a barrier. The dragon army tried to break through but took heavy casualties. Taimin saw at least 20 dragons fall from the sky. "This isn't working," he shouted. "We need a new plan." His mind raced. He thought about the swarm's tactics. They protected their command ship by surrounding it with smaller vessels, standard strategy. But what if they attacked from inside the formation? Velraxis, what if we use the nets to capture some small ships, then use them as shields to get close to the command ship? Velraxis understood immediately. She roared new orders. Dragons with nets began capturing small swarm ships without destroying them. They pushed these captured ships ahead of them, using them as cover from the command ship's weapons. It worked. The command ship couldn't fire without hitting its own vessels. The dragons got closer. Closer. When they were close enough, Velraxis gave the final order. Now! Dragons threw explosive spears at point-blank range. They struck the command ship from all sides. Explosions rippled across its hull, but it wasn't enough. The command ship's armor was too strong. The spears damaged it but didn't destroy it. Taymin looked at the command ship. He studied its design with a craftsman's eye. There, near the back. That looked like an engine vent, a weak point. Velraxis, the engine vent! We need to get a spear inside it. That's suicide. We'd have to fly right up to it through all its defenses. I know, but it's our only chance. Velraxis was quiet for exactly 1 second. Then she folded her wings and dove. She flew faster than Taymin had ever moved in his life. The world became a blur. Wind tore at him despite his armor. Swarm weapons fired. Energy beams came from every direction. Velraxis twisted and turned, dodging by inches. Taymin held on, unable to help, unable to do anything but trust her. They reached the command ship. Velraxis flew along its hull so close that Taymin could have reached out and touched it. Defense weapons fired, but couldn't angle down far enough to hit them. There, the engine vent. It was open, glowing with internal energy. I only have 1 spear left, Velraxis shouted. Then make it count. Velraxis banked hard, giving herself a throwing angle. She pulled the last explosive spear from her harness. The weapon felt light in her massive claws. Everything depended on this one throw. She threw. The spear flew straight and true. It entered the engine vent and disappeared inside the command ship. For one long moment, nothing happened. Then the command ship exploded from the inside. The blast was enormous. Velraxis flew away as fast as she could, but the shockwave caught them anyway. It tumbled them through space, spinning out of control. Taymin held on with all his strength. His harness dug into his body. He couldn't breathe. The world spun. Then Velraxis caught the air with her wings. She steadied their flight. They both gasped for breath. Behind them, the command ship was breaking apart. Fire spread through its sections. It began to fall toward the moon, pulled by gravity. The smaller swarm ships panicked. Without their command ship, they had no coordination. They began to flee in different directions. After them! Velraxis roared. Don't let them escape! The dragon army pursued. They hunted down the fleeing swarm ships one by one. It took hours, but eventually, every last swarm vessel was destroyed. When it was over, the dragons regrouped. Taymin could see the cost of victory written in their exhausted faces. They had won, but many had died. He saw empty spaces in the formation where dragons had been. Hyojin flew up to join them. Her armor was scorched and dented, but she was alive. Taymin felt relief wash over him. We did it, she said, her voice tired but proud. We actually did it. Yes, Velraxis said. We did. They flew back to Mount Karvesh slowly. The victorious army was too tired to celebrate. They carried their wounded. They mourned their dead. Victory felt heavy. But when they reached the mountain, the dragons who had stayed behind greeted them with roars of joy. They had won. The Void Swarm was defeated. Not just pushed back this time, but truly destroyed. There would be no third return. That night, there was a ceremony in the Great Hall. Velraxis honored the dragons who had fallen. She spoke their names. She told their stories. She made sure they would be remembered. Then she called Taymin forward. He walked to the front of the hall, feeling small among so many large dragons. But he stood straight. He wore his armor with pride. Taymin, Velraxus said in a voice that carried through the hall. You came to us as a prisoner, a lost human with nowhere to go. But you became something more. You became a craftsman who gave us the tools we needed, a teacher who shared your knowledge, a friend who understood our pain, and today a warrior who helped us win a war. She reached into a chest and pulled out a medal made of gold and silver. It was shaped like a dragon and a human standing side by side. I name you Royal Forge Master of Mount Carvesh. From this day forward, you are one of us. You have a home here for as long as you wish, and your people, if they ever come to this world, will always be welcome in our mountain. The dragons roared their approval. Taemin felt tears in his eyes. He bowed to Velraxus. Thank you, he said, for everything. Thank you, Velraxus replied, for showing us that strength comes in many forms, that creativity and compassion are as important as size and power, that the best solutions come when different minds work together. In the months that followed, Taemin built a proper forge. He trained more smiths in his techniques. He designed new tools and beautiful artworks. He became part of the mountain's life in every way. Hyojin became his official apprentice. She had talent and determination. Under his teaching, she became an excellent craftsman in her own right. Sometimes, late at night, Taemin would stand outside the mountain and look up at the stars. He thought about his family, about the colony they had tried to build, about the life he had planned that would never be. But he also thought about the new life he had found, the dragons who had become his family, the purpose he had discovered, the home he had earned. He had lost everything once, but sometimes losing everything was the only way to find what you truly needed. Years later, when other humans did come to the planet, they found something unexpected. They found dragons and humans working together, building together, creating together. The human craftsman who had repaired a queen's armor had built something even more important than weapons or armor. He had built a bridge between two species. He had shown that the universe was better when different peoples worked together, learned from each other, and found strength in their differences. And that, in the end, was the most important thing anyone could make. Something that would last long after the battles were forgotten, long after the weapons had rusted away. A legacy of cooperation and understanding that would endure for generations. Taemin had left his mark on the universe after all, not with buildings or cities or great discoveries, but with something simpler and more profound. He had taken what was broken and made it whole again, and in doing so, he had healed more than just armor. He had healed hearts, including his own.